Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking episode 7 of season 5 of The Walking Dead called Crossed. And there's a lot going on in this episode and does a nice job of setting up for the big mid-season finale next time around. And what can I say? I enjoyed this episode quite a bit. So there's a lot to talk about. Let's just sort of dive right into things. And let's start off with Abraham's group. Though I think it might be more accurate to probably call it either Glenn or Maggie's group at this point, because Abraham has gone bye-bye and is just sort of sitting there on his knees in the road, blue screen of death. I'm rather impressed by Abraham's ability to sit on his knees like that. He'd fit in very well at a traditional Japanese dinner doing things like that. But I guess he's just sort of so mentally messed up. He doesn't notice that his legs are probably really, really asleep. And of course, he's so messed up that when Rosita tries to give him water, he flips out, and Maggie has to threaten to kill him to get him to back down. And, this just sort of shows you that when Abraham thinks that he's lost everything, he tends to get sort of violent. When he's found the bodies of his family, he was literally started to shove a gun in his mouth. And again, here he was about ready to kill Rosita just for saying, "Dude, drink some water." And this episode does eventually give Abraham enough time to sort of process what is happening and get to the point where he indeed picks up the water, subtly indicating that yes, despite how bad things are, Abraham has decided that he's not going to give up on living just yet. And again, we get to see Maggie being pretty badass. And I did like how she improvised that little tent for Eugene out of the ladder and the blanket so the guy doesn't get sunburned badly. Also, the whole thing with Eugene, very reminiscent of the Rotters that we see over in Atlanta later on, but we'll talk about them in a bit. Now, the scene with everybody else, with Glenn, Rosita, and Tara. Now, that was some fun, nice stuff. We get to hear Rosita's backstory, and I do like what they're doing with her here on the show. Rosita in the comics is not as impressive as Rosita here on the show. Tara got some nice moments. I particularly loved how she eventually finds a yo-yo in that backpack, and she's just just having a grand old time. And I also like that she took the time to sort of defend Eugene a little bit and basically said, look, Eugene had one skill that he could use to stay alive in all of this. Is it really fair of us to fault him for using it? And, that's not an unreasonable point. I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do in order to stay alive. And as Eugene has said, that he's very smart. And from reading the comics, I know that Eugene does indeed have things to offer the group. I just sort of feel bad for him not sort of saying, look, I do have things to offer here. Just let me explain to you what I can do for you. But, people aren't perfect. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, one thing about Tara. I was like, when she said, fish, how can that be? I'm like, Tara, have you ever seen someone successfully grab a fish with their bare hands? Okay, now, can you imagine a zombie doing that? I mean, maybe if it was in a pond or something, like a really shallow pond. No, zombies are probably not very good fishermen. So I was like, geez, Tara, you seem a little dumb there. Also, I just have to point out that one thing that's really weirding me out about this show is the front of that fire engine is supposed to be all covered with blood and stuff from the various zombies that they've killed. Except blood oxidizes very quickly due to the iron in blood. It basically rusts. And oxidation is basically what causes iron to rust. So that's why if you've ever cut yourself and got a little bit of blood on, say, a white shirt, well, when you look at the stain that it leaves later, it's turned brown, not the same, red color that your blood is. Again, oxidation. I mean, this is basic chemistry. Or biology, or, whatever. I actually failed chemistry in high school because I refused to learn the periodic table. Turns out you can't pass high school chemistry if you don't take the time to learn the periodic table. Who'd have thought, huh? Anyway. That's kind of about all I had to say about their group. Now, moving on over to the church. A lot of people I saw were sort of disappointed that they took Tyrese to Atlanta and left Michonne in charge of the church. kind of saying that Tyrese, given his nature, probably might have been a better choice to look after them and sort of, in general, just sort of been the better person. And Michonne is certainly a big badass, and this is certainly true. But I think Michonne might actually be the person who's in a better position to make Father Gabriel realize that he can't just sit on his butt, that he can't expect other people to protect him. And Carl kind of tries to do that a little bit by sort of like, hey, take this machete and here's how you drive one of those through a walker's brain properly. And of course, this freaks the hell out of Father Gabriel because he's being tutored on how to murder zombies by a junior high school kid. Let's assume Carl's at about 7th grade age at this point. 13, 14 years old. So yeah, that causes him to freak out pretty seriously. And he does raise the very serious point of like, hey, those people surrendered and you totally murdered them while they were helpless. Again, not exactly an easy thing for a man of the cloth to accept. And then there's the fact that they're literally tearing down his church right in front of him. I mean, they've murdered people in his church. Now they're literally breaking it apart. They are literally tearing Father Gabriel's world to pieces right in front of his eyes, and that's why he freaks out and starts scrubbing fanatically at that blood stain. Everything. Excuse me, my throat's bothering me. That Gabriel has held dear is just coming apart in front of him, and that's just adding to the fact that he believes he's damned and going to hell for not helping the members of his congregation when the zombies attacked. So this, of course, basically leads to what we see with Father Gabriel running off into the woods. He's just like, I need to get out of here. And this leads to his confrontation with the walker and him taking one down, but not putting it down. And I have a feeling that him, cutting his foot is going to leave a trail of blood that's probably going to lead a whole bunch of zombies back to the church. And Gabriel is just going to have to grab that machete and do some serious damage, or he's doomed. Now, Father Gabriel is a fairly important character in the comics, so I have a feeling that he might make it through all of this. And he's just going to have to accept the fact that, pacifism is just not going to cut it in the zombie apocalypse. And you do keep in mind, churchmen were not always pacifists. That's certainly not the way it's worked for quite a lot of history. But, we're not going to get into that too much. But anyway, getting back to Michonne and Father Gabriel, we do see that she is making an effort to sort of help him out here, sort of deal with what he's going through. But remember, Michonne is a person who has come from a very dark place to coming back to her own humanity. And Father Gabriel is a guy who is in a very dark place. I mean, he's a man who's drowning in guilt. And I think Michonne is sort of the person that can sort of help him along, because she is, at heart a very good and caring person. And I think she can show him that, you can still be that good and caring person. You can still look after and guide people, but also do what you need to do in order to survive. That you can be both a warrior and a priest, or at least a survivor and a priest. And I think that's what Gabriel kind of needs right now. So yeah, Tyrese, if he'd been there, he'd been like, hey man, I know this is hard for you, but you'll be okay. And he would have been there trying to be a bro and all of that, but that's not what Gabriel really needed. So yeah, I mean, Gabriel would certainly have appreciated what Tyrese was trying to do, and he would even probably look at Tyrese and say, like, maybe even try to say him like, hey man, you're not like those other people, which is not true. Tyrese is also a good man who has had to do some really terrible and violent things in order to survive and protect the people he cared about. But he's held on to his morality. He had the chance to beat that guy Nick to death in that cabin, but he didn't take it, even after the guy had threatened to murder Judith. So again, Father Gabriel is really seeing things in black and white in a world that doesn't really allow that luxury anymore. Let's see, what else? I guess it's time to move over to the guys in Atlanta. And I gotta say, Bloodthirsty Rick is quite a bit of fun. But I also liked how everybody in the group, including Daryl, sort of stood up to him a little bit and like, dude, no, the whole go in there and kill everybody thing, let's not do that. Again, Rick in a way is sort of everything that Father Gabriel fears the group could be. I mean, it was even Rick who basically made it quite clear that, yeah, we're going to totally murder these people right here in your church. I mean, Rick is really the face of everything that Father Gabriel thinks is wrong with people out there in the world right now. But the others, Tyrese and Daryl stood up to him and said, like, no, man, there's a better way to do this. And Rick, not being completely and utterly crazy, unhappily goes along with it. But it does seem to work out. Once they capture those cops, Rick is a pretty reasonable guy. He has no desire to be mean to those officers. And, I like how Bob, the cop, even spots that Rick is also a former law enforcement officer right off the bat. But Rick even refuses to confirm that. I mean, Rick has basically really put that sort of part of him away. That's behind him. That's not who Rick is anymore, in his mind, I think. And speaking of Bob, I think a lot of people are sort of looking at Bob and sort of thinking that he was a bad guy all along. But I don't think that's exactly the case. Bob does make it clear that a lot of the officers who are under Dawn are not cool with her leadership. And given that, she was letting Gorman rape Joan, and this episode we find out that one of the cops was basically prioritizing being able to charge his portable DVD player over using electricity for the machines that are keeping Carol alive. So basically, it sort of looks like there's a case of some of the cops there being some serious bad apples, but most of them probably being fundamentally decent people. And remember, Noah even vouched for Bob, saying that he was one of the good ones. And yeah, Bob does indeed, bushwhack Sasha and make a run for it. But in this case, I think it's an example of the devil you know. Yeah, Bob gets the sense that maybe Rick and his people aren't bad, that, Rick is a former cop, but again, he barely knows these people, and the first thing that they did is take him and his partner hostage. Dawn, at least, is somebody he understands. He understands how Dawn works. So, again, better the devil you know. Let's see, what else? Jumping over to the hospital briefly, we do get to see some interesting stuff going on there. Dawn, for example, acknowledges to Beth that she made a mistake and that Beth was strong, and then gives her that key. Now, here's the thing. I don't think this is exactly a good thing. We've seen, and Noah even said that Dawn doesn't like strong people. That's why they let Noah's father die. I think Dawn has sussed out that Beth is somebody who could challenge her. I mean, Beth was basically responsible for the death of Gorman. And I think her giving Beth that key is basically a chance for just Dawn setting her up. Basically, if Beth gets caught stealing meds, there's no way that Dawn can't just say like, "Hey, she's stealing from us. We got to kill her." So this kind of gives Dawn a chance to get rid of Beth and to make an example out of her. And for a control freak like Dawn, that's just too good to pass up. And I think that's also part of the reason why she kept bad cops like Gorman around. Now, part of it, of course, is that you need every able body you can in order to survive in the zombie apocalypse, even if they're not necessarily people you might like. But by letting Gorman and, DVD Cop have their evil little luxuries, like raping Joan, she keeps them under control. And I do think Dawn was telling the truth that she doesn't like some of the things that she has to do in order to keep these guys under control. I can't think that Dawn was very cool with the idea of, well, Gorman likes to rape women, and if I keep Gorman happy, then I can control Gorman. So yeah, tough luck, Joan. I don't think that was a decision that she was happy about. But again, Dawn is somebody who has to be in control, and she justifies these things to herself. It's like the happier the officers are, the harder they work, the more we can survive. And it's just she will rationalize anything to stay in control and to feed these delusions of hers that help is coming. And it really is kind of amazing that there hasn't been a coup already, but a mini civil war in the middle of a zombie apocalypse is not a great idea for anybody. But you have to wonder though, if if some of the Dawn had been a little bit more willing to say like, no way, these guys are bad apples, forget them, we'll just have to get by without them, then the hospital really could have turned into something strong. They wouldn't have that doctor wouldn't have felt the need to kill the other doctor in order to save his own skin. And I do think that Doctor, whatever, I can't be bothered to remember his name. I think he was being genuine when he warned Beth about like, hey, Dawn is setting you up by giving you that key. Don't trust her. So yeah, I think the doctor, I don't think he's the sort of guy who basically is a bad person. He did one terrible thing in what he thought was necessary in order to survive. But other than that, he seems like he's been a pretty straight shooter. So, I don't know. But anyway, let's see. What else? No, I really can't think of too much else that I wanted to say. Oh yeah, wait, the Rotters, man. Okay, so if you didn't quite catch it, these zombies were victims of the napalm that the military dropped on Atlanta. They weren't completely destroyed. They basically got fused to the asphalt. That was what was apparently, if you notice, there was even a sign up saying "evacuate here." So this is like an evacuation point that got overrun by zombies, and then the military just came in there and napalmed the place. So the zombies that survived have been fused to the asphalt for like 2 years. I mean, think about that. 2 years fused to Georgia asphalt. Oh, man. Yeah. And, dude, Daryl taking out that cop by using a walker head, that was awesome. But this episode brings me up to another one of those things that drives me nuts about the show, is that nobody wears gloves when they're fighting zombies. I mean, seriously, get some nice thick gloves. You really want those. I mean, yes, it's Georgia and they're probably going to make you hot, but, it's better than getting bitten. I mean, oh man, that's been driving me crazy since like season 1. Wear some goddamn gloves. And let me see. Anything else? Not a huge amount to say about what was going on with Sasha this episode. Her guilt over not being able to be the one that put Bob down. That's understandable, but it's sort of like, well, why are you punishing yourself for this? I did like that Tyrese said, you did what you had to do. You asked me to help you when you needed help. So ask me to help you again because you need help. But I won't force my help upon you because I know that's not going to help the situation. Just again, reminding us that Tyrese is a very empathic guy and a very caring guy. But he is also a dude that you really don't want to get on the wrong side of because he is damn good at beating people. It's damn good at beating skulls in with that hammer of his. And I did like that they at least made some effort to humanize Dawn here. You do feel that she was being honest when she's saying that trying to keep control of things is a real knife edge. But again, Dawn is not willing to sacrifice even the tiniest bit of control over anybody for any reason, and that's what ultimately has made her a bad guy rather than potentially a genuine savior in a very, very bad place. It is really a fine line between being a hero and being a villain, folks. Never think any different. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for you this time. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe, and of course you can follow me on Twitter at Who's Your Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.